All right, so you just saw news that four more Democrats signed on to this banking deregulation bill. What are they calling it? Crapo?
Yeah, the Crapo bill.
That's
2155.
That's actually what they call it. That's an acronym, right? Or is it just...
No, it's named after the head of the Senate Banking Committee.
Oh, there's a guy named Crapo.
Mike Crapo.
I didn't know that.
I thought of course, Crapo's a politician.
I thought it was an acronym for, like, community regulation and, I don't know, something like that.
Protection. Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
No, it's a name.
All right, the Crapo bill. So I was just saying that, but again, my eyes and ears glaze over and suddenly become useless whenever I start hearing about money and financial talk. But the one thing that I have taken away is that so they're changing a bunch of these laws notionally because the smaller banks were not responsible for the recession and the financial crash 2008.
Right, according to their PR.
Yeah, but, well, that's the thing, is that, so, they have this lobbying group for community banks, which does include some of the bad actors. So, sure, yeah, the really little guys, like our really little, like, town banks maybe didn't have much to do with it.
I hate to say it, but it sounds like you've kind of bought into the PR, too, because those town banks they were also culpable. They were buying, or, well, not buying, but originating and selling those mortgages, which got turned into those synthetic mortgage-backed securities, which were traded so heavily and nearly destroyed our economy.
So they were sort of like the foot soldiers for it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, this company, or the lobbyists and banking industry as a whole is kind of using these poor, apparently abused community banks as, yeah.
Yeah, I guess my main thing was just going to be that I was going to say, though, but even if you are changing it to include some that, whatever, but it's not necessary was the ultimate point.
No.
They're not falling apart. I mean, do we ever read about little community banks folding? Is that a thing that's happening in large numbers? No.
Not since 2010, but 96% of all community banks were profitable last year. I think maybe one closed.
What?
Yeah, so
why
they're
weren't they
hurting
bailed
from
out?
regulation.
Yeah.
Because ever since Dodd-Frank came into effect, their profits have just been consistently going up. And this bill, yeah, it's just terrible. I mean, so the one big thing it does is that banks over a certain size, I think it's like 200, or under a certain size, like 250 billion or whatever,
I think,
no longer have to report the demographic data of the people they're giving loans to. So people who are interested in determining whether or not banks are being racist or otherwise discriminatory in their lending policies will no longer have the information that will enable them to make that decision. Like, how are you supposed to go into court and be like, Bank XYZ of Little Town has only been, like, say 73% of the people it loans to are certain, ethnicities, when the town that they notionally service is perhaps not distributed in that way. Like, say it's 73% white people, and the town itself might be maybe more than up to 50% minority. So, yeah. That goes to show you how much of a problem that could be.
Yeah. Not to step away too much from this, but, this is becoming a recurring theme where we are seeing concerted efforts by mostly the right, although in this case it's spilling well over into the left, but that try and use the power of Congress and the power of the purse to restrict research and data gathering that could be used to prove things that they don't like.
Right, if you don't collect the data, then they can't show it in court, right?
Yeah, well, and we're recently seeing this, though the law was changed years ago, but with the CDC and gun death. And I don't know. Maybe I want to have our senior legal advisor on for this, but I'm going to right now propose a freedom of research amendment, or some sort of, I don't know. Is this totally crazy that research?
No, like an academic support act.
Yeah, like, well, some sort of like First Amendment right to research. Although if we're talking about the government doing research, it wouldn't. Yeah, you'd have to have some sort of act of Congress that
Right.
maybe
Directs money.
Yeah, and maybe has like higher standards for, because it's not just that they're saying, in this case and the CDC case, it's not just that they're. I think I maybe misspoke in a way when I said they're using the power of the purse. It's not just that they're defunding a study. They are not allowing organizations to study or data gather certain
you can
types
see
of data.
And that's the problem with like the CFPB. Mick Mulvaney's doing that there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a devious motherfucking strategy, and especially as someone, not that I was in public policy, but just as someone who's has a science education and is a fan of science and fucking loves baseball stats. It just offends me so much that you're so afraid of the data that your stances and beliefs can't handle any facts.
Means that your beliefs need to be reevaluated. Hopefully.
Well, yeah, that message isn't coming across to enough voters, though.
But anyways, back to that bill.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you want to...
As I said, there's 17 of 49 Democratic caucus members are now in support. Bennett, Carper, Coons, Donnelly, Hassan, Heitkamp, Jones, Kane, King, Manchin, McCaskill, Nelson, Peters, Shaheen, Stabnow, Tester, and Warner. So places like Debbie Stabnow, our senator from Michigan, which was ravaged by this whole mortgage scandal, which apparently we're just going to rip all the Band-Aids and stitches out and just go back to the old ways of doing things. But what I see this bill as is it's really leveraging the advantages of banks to accomplish exactly what they want. For instance, this PR effort is... Obviously, they have so many banks and so much money, it's very easy for them to create AstroTurf campaigns, even if they just use their own hundreds of thousands of employees to be their sock puppets. They're not.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even necessarily fake, but it isn't really grassroots.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's like they're kind of using a pervasive anti-Wall Street mentality to the advantage of the kind of Wall Street of Main Street type of banks out there.
Right. Well, they're almost holding them hostage in some case, to some extent. But so this this kind of PR stance is exactly why those 17 Democrat senators are now in support of it, because it's very easy for them to be politically on the side, like, oh, we're helping community banks and this is a bipartisan effort and it's going to help Main Street, when a lot of the benefits are accruing to the top 10 banks maybe, who probably don't need any help. Bank of America is getting the huge carve out, or Bank of America, Citigroup especially, are getting the huge carve out that they can use muni bonds as underlying assets to satisfy their required reserve ratios. The amount of money that they have to have on hand for the number of loans that they want to give out. Before it was just cash. Cash spends everywhere, but these municipal bonds are not as liquid, which means there aren't very many people who are eager to buy municipal bonds that you can sell them easily and quickly for their face value.
Yeah. Except Jeff Sessions, as we talked about in the last segment.
Oh yeah, he apparently is an eager enthusiast of muni bonds, but maybe good public officials should be customers for that.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, go ahead.
So, wait, what was the other point? Oh, and then the next advantage that they're using is that by changing, like, basically individual words in the bill from, like, may to shall, they're leveraging their huge legal departments against the government, so the Federal Reserve is going to be super duper hesitant to even, like, tread upon regulations that impact banks, because in the original Dodd-Frank Act, there was a line that the Federal Reserve may consider the individual situations of banks when promulgating regulation and policy. But in the new bill, that is changed from may to shall. So the Federal Reserve shall consider the conditions of these individual banks, which means if the Federal Reserve, even after their cost-benefit analysis, which they're required to undergo of any potential regulation, even if they do that cost-benefit regulation or cost-benefit analysis of the regulation and then issue it, they will be stomped on in litigation by any and every bank that has anything to do with what they're publishing, which will keep resources further from regulating the banks that need it the most, because they have the biggest legal departments, of course.
Yeah. I was watching C-SPAN yesterday, and they had some people talking about this bill on there, and they were saying how one of the aspects of the bill changes the Federal Reserve looking at how much, I think it's cash or liquid assets or whatever, the bank has on hand, to see if it's
healthy.
Yeah. They now do it once a year, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the stress tests are like once or twice a year.
Yes. Yeah. And now it's in this bill, it changes it from like to like once in a while or something. It was really weird.
It changes it from like annually to periodic.
Yeah, and the guy was like, "No one knows what that means, but it probably won't be very often."
No. Yeah, whenever they get around to it, whenever they feel like it, I guess.
Yeah, whenever a bank isn't paying them off enough. Bribes.
Well, the Federal Reserve is made up of banks, which further complicates the whole twisted cycle of regulation and yeah.
All right.
There's a lot to say about this bill, and
what I was going to say is that we can come back to this bill another time. This is not one that's being rushed, I don't think.
It probably will be now that
it's out of committee, you think, or
and people know about it. I mean, this isn't the Choice Act, which flew under the radar last year and allowed loan sharks to bilk people of all their money. This is now in the public sphere, and people are talking about how there's a bipartisan consensus to fuck the American consumer.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see.
I'm sorry,
we'll see if it fucks American consumer. Just if it's rushed. That's all I mean.
Pardon my cursing. I know we're not an explicit podcast.
Yeah, we got to figure that one out. Anyway, we have to fucking figure it out, right? So yesterday on All Over TV, which I did not partake in because I don't watch.
Yeah, I was away from my computer all day yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit on Twitter. Sam Nunberg, who worked for Trump for I think like 5 years.
One of his loyal attachés.
Yeah. Was, rumored to be drunk on TV yesterday, going from station to station. He did, I think, 2 newspaper interviews, the Post and the New York Times. Was on MSNBC twice, and was on CNN at least once. And it was, I was trying not to pay attention to it, but I couldn't help. And he had some interesting tidbits, which I don't know if it's a reliable source for some of this stuff. Yeah, he's saying it when he's on MSNBC, but is he saying these things while under oath? I don't know. I love how his position changed from "I'm going to defy Robert Mueller," and at the end of the night, he's like, "Yeah, I'm probably going to go along with it." Well, yeah. Spoiler alert: the only reason they had him on was because his main thesis of the day was, I'm not going to go talk to Mueller. What's he going to do? Arrest me? And then at the end of the day, he was feeling, I don't know, accepting his fate, and said he probably will talk to Mueller, which was the whole premise for all these interviews, is that he wasn't going to talk to Mueller. So, anyway, I think the point that we both shared is that he was kind of, from what I've seen now, kind of going nuts a little bit. He seemed out of whack. He seemed scared, frankly. He seemed...
I mean, who wouldn't be? Which side is he?
Yeah, he seemed upset. He even, in one little clip I saw, the woman's like, "Are you drunk or on other drugs?" And he's like, No. Well,
And she said something, "I can smell it on your breath."
Well, yeah, but he's like, "Meds?" He's like, "My meds," and he's like, like for depression and so obviously not because you're depressed that means anything, but I don't know. It speaks to some things. Some folks were commenting that, well, maybe his friends should be worried about him and checking on him right now, because
And while they may have been tongue in cheek, that should have been like some very serious concerns. Because
I saw some that were serious.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it started off as tongue in cheek by some people, and it just, to me, it's like these fucking cable news outlets can't get enough. They're sharks in
addicts
in the blood. Yeah, they're addicts. It's a good way. They're addicts. They're addicted to reality TV Trump news. Yeah. It's not even just scandal. It's just because there's tons of real scandals. Yeah,
right. Because if they were actually on scandals, our cabinet piece would have been 2 hours long instead of just one.
Yeah, there'd be a lot more info out there. It's not. And obviously there have been important bits of journalism done by these outlets, but what's the ratio? But
yeah,
okay, yeah, CNN has broken some good pieces. I don't know what MSNBC does, but
I assume they just talk about Russia all the day.
Maybe they have too. I don't know.
I hear good news out of Chris Hayes, or good news out of, not good news, but interesting news out of Chris Hayes occasionally, but that's about it.
Yeah,
but he doesn't expressly cover
maybe
Russia
individually these people are fine TV personalities and pundits or whatever the hell they are, but as a whole, as an operation,
you got to question their priorities.
It's clickbait. They're like the bad part of BuzzFeed, not the journalist part, but the clicks.
Texts.
Yeah, they're just. I mean, they invented clickbait. They've been doing clickbait since before there was clickbait.
A term for it, yeah.
And anyway, it just seemed, I just got a really bad feeling as the more I couldn't help but see about this guy, and it just, or even just putting on like we're, I don't know, and there is a balance here. Like, on one hand, if there's a person who's involved in a major investigation about the president and he's willing to talk, yes, of course, on some level you put that person on there, but you have to be careful of those subjects, interview subjects, doing it for self-serving reasons.
Or self-destructive reasons.
Or self-destructive reasons. And I don't think they do enough due diligence. I mean, what the hell has Carter Page been spewing every time he goes on TV?
Why would you have Carter Page on anyway?
What's, I don't know. I trust the newspaper versions a little bit more because they kind of have, they can sort of...
There's more editing that's done before it's put out.
They can
it's
more
not like
easily
you're watching it happen in front of you.
They can fact check before they've put out the final product, exactly. So, anyway. And then let's end on the funny note of the week.
I was going to say one more note for Sam Nunberg. Yeah. There's a video out there that somebody put together of the first time he met Donald Trump when he was 5 at a WWE event. He has just such hero worship and joy in his eyes. Yeah, it's out there.
How old is he?
Like 5 or 6 years old.
No, how old is he now? Is he like our age or something?
Yeah, he's our age.
Oh, he doesn't... Maybe I look worse than I think, but he doesn't look that great for... Oh. I guess I didn't look at him that close, but I just assumed he was, I don't know,
40, 50? No.
Oh, wow. Been working for Trump for a few years.
Really, it takes the life out of you.
Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah, he looked like Elijah Wood before he took that job. So anyway, yeah, the funny news of the week. The Utah legislators in the Utah legislature, and their Republican Party there put out a video, a music video, sort of like the like the old Schoolhouse Rock thing on how a bill is made, except they
rapped.
Yeah, they
tried to rap.
They rapped it to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And it's hilarious. There's a weird thing, though, where I feel a little uncomfortable, where part of me wants to call them racist. Let's just be honest. It's
cringy.
Utah, and it's Republicans. On the other hand, I'm like,
It was like all white people, right?
Oh, they were all white. Yeah, totally. Mostly men, though there were a few women. Mostly old, though a few weren't that old. And I don't know, hip-hop's so pervasive. The show itself, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, is 25 years old at this point or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I probably shouldn't be playing the racist card, but it's definitely cringy.
Yeah, it's an affront to the whole genre.
They should be embarrassed just for themselves. Why would they?
Right?
I think half of them were like, why are we doing this? What the fuck is this? And some party head is like, we have to get the kids to like us. Like, as if kids, I mean, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it's syndicated, but come on. How many 17-year-olds are watching?
Nobody. Not unless they're at the end of their Hulu and Netflix feed, and because they've been, I don't know, in bed for weeks because of a broken bone. I don't know. It's tough to imagine why that situation comes about.
Yeah, it's to me it was the brightest spot of the week. If you like cringe humor, at least, it's a good time.
If you want to see like 40 people have like no flow, except strangely that one guy who was he wasn't even like going with the rep at all. He was just kind of saying it, and it somehow really worked.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just going to read this once, and they just edited that bit in. Well, I mean, I think they even like lost the beat. Like, they're so bad that it's not like it like goes on longer, and like the end of their lines aren't coming on the snare. And maybe that's getting too nerdy about hip hop, but I mean, they are way off.
Yeah,
it's
not a matter of being off tempo like KRS-One. It's just bad.
Oh yeah, I mean they're it's so terrible. And I think you're right. The people who were I mean, there's like some of them like putting on like hats backwards. Some of them throwing up like their hands in the air, like they're doing like my dad pretending to rap type thing.
Just trying to imagine that.
Yeah, it's cringy white dad humor type thing. And yeah, so anyway, that's it.
I mean, how much money do you think they put in that versus how much money they're going to have to spend to counteract the damage from that? Well, like, the only thing I know about Utah Republicans is that they are terribly tenured, like, maybe not racist, but certainly, well, at the very least, tenured.
Yeah. I mean, the South Bronx ain't in Utah, so maybe we shouldn't blame them too bad.
Sure.
It's not their fault they live in Salt Lake City, and
I don't know. Hip-hop has taken over the world. You can find MCs and DJs from everywhere now.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, we're from Wisconsin, right? So
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd like to remind everyone that our consulting firm wants you to subscribe, rate, and review,
and don't forget to share on your social media.
Share on MySpace, our podcast. I'm sorry. Please, if anyone's out there listening that didn't know that you should do that for podcasts you want to support because you've never heard a podcast before, please contact me.
We want to have you on the show for an interview.
I want to know who these people are. But it's I've now found out it's universally said everyone who does podcasts should do this stuff. And this consulting firm is like, you're really stupid for not doing this, and no one's ever going to like you now.
Wait, do I know this consulting firm?
Well, yes, we each threw in $250,000 for this, Charles.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And it's a DNC consulting firm, so you know that we're tied in close with the consulting firm. So that's how they work.
Yeah, we're closely tied to success, right?
It's
Isn't
not
that the way that works.
It's not a meritocracy.
It's a kleptocracy.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I'm Peter Elbro. You can find me on Twitter at BloatedNemesis.
And I'm Charles Minnick. You can find me at green_weird, WYRD, also on Twitter, of course.
And we always want to hear what you think out there. Have a good week.
Goal of peace, days of sunny, days of rain, destroy the myth that will break our chains. Break your chains.